All right, we are going to be going into the art of typography, and what that means is we are going to be analyzing what typography is, how it's used in everyday life, how does it communicate, how do they have personalities, how they function in our everyday design, and then finding products that use them and then breaking them down and dissecting them. So, typography incorporates all visual components of a written word. It is the art of arranging type to make written language legible and readable with the goal of make it appealing. So, we have two examples here of some creative typography. So, typography is great in the fact that you can create it on your own, or you could use type on like Illustrator, Photoshop, really anything, and really manipulate it to be yours. There's different terms for typography that we're going to learn. So arranging type involves different types of line length, line spacing, such as leading, letter spacing, tracking, and adjusting the space between each of the letters. So we're going to be learning about leading, tracking, and kerning. I want us to actually go to Illustrator for this. And for the first one, I want us to use the type tool, and we are going to create paragraph text. Inside of the character panel at the top, this is where you can do all your adjusting. So I'm just going to zoom in here on the right hand side so we can see. Okay, if you hover over them, so this is where we can set our font size. This has the leading, kerning, tracking, vertical scale, baseline, etc., etc. So we are learning about leading, tracking, and kerning. So let's do some tracking first and then leading, so we can actually adjust these. You can see as it's scrolling through. So we have leading that is spacing between each of the lines. So this would be like if you wrote a paper for English and she asked you to do it double spaced. This is kind of like the same concept, just spacing out the words in each of the paragraphs. So then we have, I'm going to hover over, tracking. Tracking is the amount of space in between each of the letters. So you can see that the space between the letters is starting to increase. So they're really close together here. And then as I increase, they enlarge. So let's actually do I'm just going to click and then have a line. I'm going to make it bigger by holding Shift. Same thing here, you can kind of see, so if I put it back down to 0, the letters are pretty close together, and then as I increase, they space apart. Same concept goes for if I were to go inward, they would get closer together and keep going. You could even adjust these to go even farther, so they'd be super, super close. So this is just one way to manipulate text. And then you have kerning. Let's touch here. Not kerning. Yes, going here, and then adjusting the width as well. Okay. All right, so playing with manipulation of text. All right, typography in action. So why is typography so important? So here we have an example of poor typography choices. It says 10 flickering lights, but if I were to glance at this, it looks like a bad word is being used. So, this is a great example of why tracking is also important. So having those space between those letters, but they could have easily used a different type to make sure that their message got across without it being misinterpreted. All right, we are going to learn about the different types. So typography is split up into different categories. You're going to learn about the history of typography, and you are going to do your worksheet. So you're going to go to activity 1. So I'll show you here. In your journals, you're going to watch this video here, and then you're going to fill out activity 1. All right, going into activity 2. Activity 2, you're going to make a composition based off of the types that you just learned about. So black letter, old style, transitional, modern, slab, sans serif, and geometric. So you're trying to find as many different types and fonts as you can to create a really cool composition. The theme of this composition is you are going to create a ransom note of whoever you want to do. It could be someone famous, and you really want to think about what makes them famous so that you can make the ransom note. So the top one here says, I have T Swift, pay 6K or you'll never, ever, ever get her back, like ever. That's from one of her songs. It's paying homage to one of her lyrics. Or we could look at the one on the far right, why so serious? If you want to see Heath again, become the agent of chaos. So this one's about Joker from Batman. Heath Ledger's the one who plays Joker in that, so they pay homage to that as well. So just coming up with something creative and making a full composition while still keeping in mind that you are finding different types of type categories. All right, type font. So all fonts, actually I shouldn't say all fonts, but most fonts have what we call a font family. So that means when you pick a font, there's other types, or when you pick a typeface, the typeface is really just the whole category of the style, but they have fonts within the typeface. So what I want us to do for activity 3, we're gonna practice this. I want you to find 3 typefaces, and you're going to have to find them ones that have font families in them to be able to show me the different variations. So you only need at least, you can do like 3 each. So let's go into the activity here. And I'm going to type out and also put this back to normal. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, so you'll know if something has a font family if they have the arrow pointing next to it. So these are all the fonts within the typeface called fit variable. Let's go ahead and pick, let's go with Baskerville. I'm gonna go with Baskerville for this. So I'm gonna type out Baskerville. That is the actual typeface. I'm gonna copy and paste to make this easier on myself. And I'm going to make 3 of them. So this one, I'm going to put in Baskerville italic. So I'm going to put Baskerville italic. This one we can do semi-bold. So Baskerville semi-bold. And then this one, I'm going to do the drop down and we can just do regular bold. So Baskerville bold. Okay. I'm going to highlight these to make sure they fit on the paper. Cool. So once again, doing things smarter, not harder. I'm just going to copy and paste these since I know I have to do 3 of them. And I'm just going to choose a new typeface. So for this one, I will do, let's do Futura. So I'm going to type in Futura. Another smart tool is using the eyedropper tool. So if I were to highlight all 3 of these, I can use the eyedropper tool and swatch Futura. It should change them to all of them. And now all I have to do is retype. So let's do Futura condensed medium. So Futura condensed medium. Let's do, for this one, we can keep it at medium, so Futura medium, and then Futura, I don't know which this one's going to be, bold. Futura, bold. All right, on to our last one. Let's do something fun. Here, Menlo. Never heard of it. So let's go Menlo. I'm going to select these. I'm going to use the eyedropper tool so that they're all in Menlo. So this will be Menlo regular. Menlo, let's go italic. And then Menlo, bold. All right, I have completed the activity. I'm going to go to File, Export, Export As. I'm going to put it in my downloads for now, and we can call it Typeface. We're going to use Artboard, make sure this says PNG. I'm going to export, high 300, white background, click OK. And then you will go to, you can do insert image, and if you upload from your computer, it would be in my downloads, so I'd be able to, wherever that is, Typeface. So I'd be able to open this, and it should plop itself onto the worksheet. All right, moving on. Typography psychology. So all fonts have some type of personality. So we have two examples here. They both have the same type, or they both say the same message: I will always find you. But the one on the left is a little more endearing and cutesy, where the other one on the right feels a little more murderous. And that's just solely based off the fact that they are using two different typefaces. One a little more endearing and bubbly, the other one a little more janky, rigid, and sharp. Great example, does personality matter, of a typeface? It does. So we have Target here. So Target is known for, think about who Target's audience is. We have a little more classy, but really for a family, really inclusive. So they use what's called a sans serif, so without tails. Right down here we have one with serif. Feels a little too fancy for Target. We want it to fit the everyday life. Same thing in the middle here. We have a typeface that feels a little too like I'm going to maybe an axe throwing place, and then the one over here we have a monospace, which feels a little too techy. So it does matter what type of typeface you use and what is the message that you're trying to send to your target audience. All right, let's do the flip side here. So Tiffany & Company, who is their audience? Their audience is upscaled women or men who really love jewelry that is high class. So typically you would use a serif, so you can see the little tails on the end of the typeface. Serifs are really great for showing fancy, upscale typography. If we were to put it in a sans serif, which means without the tails, feels a little too bland, feels like everyday. I would not consider Tiffany & Company an everyday type of style, so this wouldn't work. Now, you have a script font here, which does fit Tiffany & Company. However, it's a little too edgy. I would say this is more for like a type of like branding that would have more edge in their target audience. And then on the far right here, this feels more cartoony. Feels like it would actually be the sign for some type of cartoon on Cartoon Network. So it, once again, does matter what type of typography you're using. Which brings us to activity 4. I want you to type the open My Name Is handout in Illustrator, and you're going to type out your name, and you're going to change your name to the type of descriptive word and export into the attach for the next slide. So you're just going to type your name out as many times in each of the boxes. And so if this one says my name is, I would type out my name and I'm an artist. So you want it to be artsy. I'm just going to do one on here. So if I were to do my name, misspell, and I wanted to find an artsy typeface, let's go into our typefaces, and you want to see which one feels more artsy. This feels like, I definitely like this one. This one's more graffiti, so I would definitely say this one is more artsy. So you'll fill out all those categories. I'll have that attached in Google Classroom for you to fill out. And activity 4 will be pasted on the slides here. All right, let's talk about alignment, which we are pretty familiar with. So there are different types of alignment you can do with text. You can have far right, far left, centered. This is really a great guide, especially when we're doing paragraphs. It's super helpful to be able to align your text and make sure they're crisp and clean on the page. So we have at the top left, left justified, which means all the text is aligned to the left side. We have right, so all the text is aligned to the right. Justified will space out your letters so that everything is perfectly fitting into like a rectangular box. And then we have center justification, which means it's just going to put it all in the center. It's not going to justify it as all, which means it could fit any shape. So activity 5, I want you to find real life alignments inside of magazines. So I will have magazines provided for you. I want you to find one spread that you really like. I want you to find all the examples you can find on that one spread of alignment. So are they doing any justification? Do they do any alignment to the left, right, or center? Use different color markers to draw my eye and circle the ones that you see and label them. After you've done that, I want us to talk about hierarchy now. On the page, I want you to tell me what was the first thing you saw, what's the second, and what's the third. Put the number 1, 2, and 3 by the things that you see in order on the page. Once you've done that, take a photo of the spread on the magazine and insert it onto this page for credit. All right, why we want to talk about hierarchy, because we're going to get into hierarchy and typography. What does that mean? Remember we talked about hierarchy. Something has to stand out to pull my eye there first. So great example on the right-hand side of design. It says your eyes here, then here. Isn't that fascinating? So they've used typography and they've used a really bold typography and they've made it bigger so that you see your eyes here. They've then decreased the size of the type below for then here. And then they've decreased it even further, so it's the last thing that I see for isn't that fascinating? And they've also turned it into a new typography or new typeface. So all of these things accumulate to what do you see first and how do you see it? Okay? So let's talk about this photo here. Okay, great example of using different types of typography, but keeping the hierarchy. So what do they want? This is a poster advertising some type of event. So think about what's the most important thing on this poster. Well, we need to know what event we're going to. We also need to know the date. So it makes sense that they have Jazz 09 and the date in the biggest and the thickest font. They then have up at the top corner, I know this is in a different language, but I can tell that this is probably where it's going to be set at. They've made it a little bit bigger and more readable so that my eye is drawn up there as well. Then they have decorative font flowing through the instrument that is also giving information but is of less importance. So that's how we go about in hierarchy with typography. For activity 6, I want you to again flip through some magazines and find one spread that you're really drawn to. I want you to once again draw the numbers 1, 2, and 3. 1 being the first thing you noticed, 2 being the second thing you noticed, and the third being the last thing that you noticed about the spread. In your journals on activity 6, I want you to explain what the graphic designer did to create this hierarchy. Did they use color? Did they use shapes? Did they use some type of lines? Did they use typography size? Okay, or did they use a specific type of typeface to draw your eye? All these things accumulate to some type of hierarchy. I want you to explain yourself in your journal. All right, let's go into font pairings. So font pairing is definitely a skill. It's something that you're not going to learn overnight. Only some people really have this skill, and it's done after so much time has been as being a graphic designer. But it's one that is super important. You need to be able to pair fonts together to create messages together as well. So there are a couple ways and different types of, I would say, scientific ways to find fonts that go well together. It's kind of like a formula. So what we're going to do in the description here, I want you to find fonts that fit the criteria. So the first one is all caps with the script, skinny and chunky, fancy and simple, lowercase with capitals, different but similar, wide and narrow, tall and short. So we are going to figure out how to, I would like us to learn how to download fonts because all of these fonts may not be all in your Illustrator. So let's just go with chunky. So we're gonna go into, let's go with chunky font free. And we are going to download. I'm actually gonna go into Google. So chunky font free. And let's use font space. Font space is a good one. So chunky fonts. I have some cool chunky fonts here. Let's just keep scrolling. Let's go. Keep going, keep scrolling. I kind of like this one. So I'm going to use the download button and it should go into my downloads. It's now turned into a zip file. You have to open the zip file by clicking it So now we are in our downloads. I have to double click on the font file, and you'll see that they have two font files, one with OTF and one with TTF. We are going to do the one that says OTF, and we are going to double click. This should bring up your font options, and just give it a minute. The blue install button should appear, and I'm going to click install. So let's exit out of here, and we are going to look for Neometra. So now clicking on here, and I can type in Neometra. It is now in my font file. So now I have Neometra on here. I'm going to take a screenshot of the categories so that I can do this with you. Please. All right, so all caps with a script. I'm just going to type out all caps, and then I'm going to put script. So all caps, let's try something a little less abrasive. Let's do Babus New. All caps, and then I need a script. So the really great thing too about character or going into your fonts is they actually have filters. So if you go into your filters, filter fonts by classification, you can click on this. These are all the classifications. So if you're not too sure, so this is a sans serif. These are serifs, slab serifs, script, black letter, monospaced, hand, and decorative. You can even go by weight, condensed height weight, and all caps and lower caps. So I actually am going to do script for this, see which scripts are currently in my catalog. And I kind of like, let's see what goes well together. I do like the Great Vibes one, but I feel like the all caps could be a little more fancy. So I'm gonna actually use a serif. So let's go into serifs, and Bedoni. Does Bedoni have? They have book. I want something a little more. Yeah. Let's see. Did it? Just kind of plain. Regular, that sounds nice too. I think I like Baskerville the best, so let's go with regular Baskerville. I'm going to drop this down. So we now have all caps and script. Kind of just plain. Doesn't have to be like that. I could also put this on the side somewhere, or maybe at the bottom. Could put that here. So all caps and script. Next one we have skinny and chunky. So let's go skinny, copy and paste, and chunky. All right, so I'm gonna go back to my my font selections. They actually have skinny on here. Let's see what we have for skinny. We got some thin. Cool. I also, let's see, I'm going to take off, I'm going to clear this so I can actually see for myself, what do I have in here that maybe is super thin? Avenir's kind of thin. I kind of like that. And we have ultra light for this one, so let's actually use that. That's super skinny. I love that. And then chunky, let's see what other chunks I got on here. I do like this one too. That's kind of nice. I do like that. Those go really well together. Fancy and simple. Okay, this will be my last one, and then you guys can fill out the rest. So we'll go fancy with simple. Fancy, I would definitely, I mean, that could be anything really. A serif could be fancy as well. You really got to play and see what's in here. Big Castellan's pretty fancy. I do like that. And then we want something a little more simple. So I'm probably going to use I'm going to go to categories here. I'm going to go with sans serifs because those are pretty simple. And let's see what's in here. Avenir next is pretty good. Cairo is pretty good. Let's see what that looks like together. I do not like the way those look together, so I'm going to keep scrolling. Franklin Gothic looks nice. I do like that. Those look nice together. Okay, so you're just going to fill those out. You're going to export again, put them in your downloads or your Google Drive, and then you are going to put them in the activity for a final review. Okay, but that's all, guys. Thanks for coming for practice typography.